So I'll be discussing Coco Chanel and Igor Stravinsky, a 2009 film by Jan Conan. This film revolves around two characters, you'll never guess who, and unpacks their rumored love affair in the summer of 1920. So much like Kant had his own series of tests for determining genius, I think it's worth examining a similar test for what makes a film like this biographical. To start, while the film arguably captures some of the most public and famous successes in their lives, Chanel No. 5 and The Rite of Spring, it fails to mention Coco and Igor's rise to fame and fruition, and the first moments they really took interest in their respective trades. Moreover, because its premise is on an unverifiable love affair, this film is not a biography. I will admit that although this film is really focused on a 7-year time span, it captures the moment Coco and Igor first saw each other in 1913, the Russian uprisings, the relationship in 1920, and the return of Rite of Spring to kind of create this solid 7-year timeline. In many ways, this film also reminded me of Amadeus, in that it sectioned the time period when Coco and Igor's lives intersected and built on it a story that may or may not have happened, based on a rumor. Additionally, like the title of Amadeus, the title of this film suggests that it is biographical. Still, there is more merit in examining the basis of this film, which is really the relationship between Coco and Igor and the essence of both of their characters. So starting with Coco, much like biographies describe her, in the film she's kind of portrayed as this tall, effortlessly beautiful, independent, and forthright woman. She commands pretty much every space she enters, and much like, with the cinematography and shots that are continuously circling and revolving around her, and costumes that are showing her clean lines and silhouette walking down a hallway, we focus on the fact that she is this fashion icon, and she's always being made more distinguishable than the guests and the characters around her, and setting a standard for what beauty and elegance should be. It's even said in the film that she makes grief look chic. More specifically, she's pictured in pretty much every scene wearing black, except for the first scene when she's shown wearing white, still in love with her lover boy, and later on in the film when she's kind of developing a relationship with Igor. Other than that, the only signs of color we see out of Chanel are orange when she's picking out or selecting her perfume, and every scene involved in that process. Aside from the visuals, the film kind of also delves into some of her complexities, her focus on her career, and her know-how of what she wants her brand to be and who she wants to work with. In the film, she's portrayed as this powerful, independent, successful woman of no regret. She claims she's as powerful as Igor, but more successful, and the only times you really see her vulnerable are when she's grieving the loss of boy. Igor Stravinsky, on the other hand, is kind of portrayed as this fool that can't decide between two women. He won't leave his wife and children for Chanel and vice versa, and he's undoubtedly a mastermind of his trade. But I'd say that even in his outbursts, he has a less commanding and less dominating effect than Chanel. He acts more dependent on his trade and the relationships with the women in his life, as he did in real life as well. And despite living and working in a hotel early on in the film, and supporting his children and his ailing wife, he really only thinks of himself and his music, and he's too prideful to receive any financial assistance from anyone, including Chanel. So as mentioned in class, Chanel kind of commands the visual aspects of this film, and Stravinsky dominates the musical components. Musically, we see a change in Igor's persona and an evolution in his music, particularly with The Rite of Spring from the very beginning to the end when he's conducting himself, and all in all, his music becoming much more passionate, which his wife actually calls him out for. The scene I've chosen to dissect, though, is the last intimate scene between Igor and Coco, when they're both laying on Chanel's bed, sort of after a back and forth urge to spend one night together, and Igor finally says, "I can't." Visually, the scene is shot with a shot that's seen throughout the entire movie that's revolving around both characters, circling them, and it's repeated in like throughout the movie, showing the characters individually, reflecting on their own internal conflicts, whether it's Chanel's difficulty letting go of Boy or Igor's struggles managing his affairs. But it's this scene that really shows their artistic geniuses. It's one of the most intimate scenes visually, shows how close these characters are, but also how different they are. The rest of the film kind of tries to show their likeness, that they both use fabric and notes to kind of bring about these masterpieces and creations out of essentially nothing. And it's really isn't until this scene that we understand that these characters don't have a lot in common. They don't understand each other. Igor thinks of himself as an artist and Chanel as a shopkeeper, and Chanel doesn't respect him, she respects his music. So it's this moment that we again realize that the "and" in the title of the film doesn't really group these two as an entity or a couple. It really suggests that these are two individual artists with different trades and completely different personalities.